Hi, my name's Adam. I'm a game designer at Kite Games, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about Sunstrike 5, some of the heavy weapons that we have access to, the new defense system we've got, and the very special armored train unit that we're introducing into the game. Of course, with Sunstrike 5, a large part of combat revolves around how you use your units, and that can mean the light tanks and the artillery, the infantry, but it also means how you're making the most of your most powerful units, the heavy weapons that you have access to. On the lowest level, this means the heavy tanks, which of course they're returning. Many of those are returning from Sunstrike 4, such as the German Tiger tank, or the Soviet KB-1, the American Pershing, or the Super Pershing. We have these heavy tanks, which are obviously later towards the game as the war proceeds on. But it's important to understand how you're using those, because they're very limited in how many you can have access to at any one. For the heavy tanks, you actually can only access those through the railway checkpoints. If you were to capture a military checkpoint at the edge of the map, you won't be able to have access to the heavy tanks. So you're going to have to only access the train stations, so you can order those heavy tank reinforcements in. And even then, often in most missions, they're restricted because they're so powerful. Of course, you'll have access to the heavy tanks throughout the game, but there will be certain missions where you do have access to specialized units or particularly powerful units. One example is on the Battle of Sevastopol. You'll, while playing as the Germans, you'll have access to the Karl Gerät. This is a very powerful long-range artillery unit, so it can be quite decisive in that mission. But because it's so slow, it can easily be targeted by other enemy units, so you need to make sure you're looking after it. And you obviously want to target units that are especially weakened by its long-range artillery. Not all the heavy weapons are just offensive units. Some of those, for example, Maxim Gorky is one of the more powerful defensive units we have. It's available on Sevastopol for the Soviet side, and you'll be able to use that to kind of pick apart the attacking German forces from a great distance. Defense is a big part of Sunstrike 5, perhaps more so even than Sunstrike 4. In that game, the objectives were a little bit more scripted, a little bit controlled, whereas in Sunstrike 5, because of the sandbox nature of the gameplay that we tried to push on, its defense is a big part of how you succeed in the mission. You still have access to structures and trenches that you can move your infantry into. That'll give them some more defensive position and allow you to hold a position more defensively, for a very important reason, because the AI itself now has to also play in a more sandbox way. So unlike Sunstrike 4, where the AI was always working to achieve a specific target or goal, here in Sunstrike 5, they're more kind of prioritizing objectives and locations and positions based on the state of the player's progress. So if you've captured a radar station, that might be in that particular mission an important target for the AI, and knowing that they're going to try to come and recapture that basically allows you to build a strategy around that. Do I want to hold on to that position? Is that position important for me to spend my units, my resources on? Or do I not find that so valuable and I want to use my resources elsewhere, defend some other position or move more offensively? That's kind of ties into the overall kind of balance that we've tried to achieve with the gameplay of Sunstrike 5. One of the more exciting new units that we have access to in some of the missions on the game is an armored train. This is a controllable unit that you can guide around the rails on the missions that is available. We tried to keep these historically accurate, so they're machines, they're weapons that would be built in the way that they were during the time. One example to use Sevastopol is the Green Ghost, which was quite a famous train from the Soviet side. They were using that during the defense of Sevastopol to cause a lot of damage to the attacking Germans, and it was quite infamous for the German side. Because of the limitations of the maps and the fact that it can only travel on the train tracks, you have to essentially use your other units, your other ground units, to ensure that the train can move through safely. So it might be that there are switch POIs. These are buildings that you can capture that allow the train to move through. The enemy is controlling those, then you can't move through. But also, it's not invulnerable. So while it is powerful, it can still take a lot of damage. One of the nice little features about the missions that these are in is that because the train can go different ways, you can kind of approach even the missions with the train in a more sandbox way. So you can choose whether you go down the left road or the right road, and that allows you to kind of build your strategy around how you want to use that train.